What's up, YouTube? Welcome to my channel and my first ever recorded video. Super pumped about it, and let's get right into it. So Apple's had an onslaught of demos this year, all virtual of course, looking fabulous in the new infinite loop building they have. So what we've had for a few years, boom, iPhone X. What we have now, boom, iPhone 12 Pro. Now, this isn't really anything to hype up the iPhone 12. This isn't anything to say you absolutely need it. This is purely just to give a quick little unboxing on my basic takes and then really highlight what I believe to be the most important and cool feature, at least for my interest, which is the addition of LiDAR. In just its quick timeline, I believe the Apple iPad Pro 2019 edition was one of the first, if not the first, commercial product from Apple to introduce LiDAR. And this just has a ton of really cool applications that might not manifest this year or the next year, but I believe, and what I'm really betting on and predicting is in the next 5 to 10, it's going to really unlock a bunch of cool applications for AR, VR, and really just building art, I guess, and creating real world digital experiences. So my initial take, if you've ever opened an Apple product, you know the shipping, packaging is minimal. You know all the components fit really well together. There's almost no empty space. There's no excess bubble wrapper. There's no bubble wrap. The packaging is quite often, is always perfect, and they do that incredibly well. This was like no other. And what I really found cool about this initial unboxing was they even had this sort of UI diagram on the front face cover. You could see where the power button was. You could see where a few of just the typical volume and lock switches were. That I thought was super unique. The other thing that I sort of noticed right off the top of the bat was this little extra, it wasn't even a divot, it was more of a space, just a different coloration on the model. And this appears to be a touch type thing. So rather than Face ID, I believe they're now allowing like fingerprint IDs again. And so now the coolest part, even though it might just seem like a basic camera, just looking at 3 cameras, I guess. One is wide angle, one is maybe the telephoto lens for the super zoom, and one's maybe just the standard. But there's this extra little notch, and that's the LiDAR. So exactly what I'm pointing out here. So now we're gonna quickly highlight LiDAR, talk just very briefly about it, give the high level internet definition of it, and show a few examples. Then I kind of want to get your minds jogging onto maybe potential applications, or at least where I'm sort of hoping they fit in, or generally the technology progresses towards that. So Wikipedia signifies LiDAR as a method for measuring distances by illuminating the target with laser light and measuring the reflection with a sensor. The differences in the laser return times and wavelengths can then be used to make 3D representations of the target. So with LiDAR technology, you can build these incredible geospatial looking maps that gives an object's depth, the distance from you to the object. It's not super easy to explain without just kind of showing. So what I went ahead and did is I found 3 apps right off the top from sort of this AR, VR Twitter community I hang around, and I just want to go over those very quickly. So the first app here that should be on the screen is an app called Canvas. And so I think this is mostly targeted towards like room planning for real estate, perhaps like creating an AR experience, or not even AR necessarily, but just a virtual experience of touring like a bedroom if you were leasing an apartment, or looking at furniture and seeing where that might apply, maybe planning the layout and organization of your room. So looking at the video here, I'm just scanning the space you see behind me, collecting data on it, and then kind of just following the objects, watching what happens. You can notice like different kind of light colorations a bit as it maps through. You can see that it's drawing a bunch of lines across different planes and textures, noticing that angle. And so hopefully by now we're already at the part where it's kind of about to render and process this together. So right now I'm looking at this sort of blank hollowed shell with a few just general lines, and then give it some time. And now we see a full sort of 3D immersive rendering of the room I'm in right now. And so these are also like these pictures stitched together are pretty high definition. This looks like a pretty high quality photo, and you can move around the room, you can zoom in and out, you really get a detailed experience, something that I think will have a ton of application, and I want to hold off of that till I go to the next one or two. Okay, so the next app we're looking at here is called Every Point. And so with this app, I really wanted to kind of highlight that sort of different color of mapping based on distances, and just kind of show another alternative for how some of these companies are able to display and kind of give you a user experience confirmation of your scan, basically just communicating the product is working. And in the process, you're just getting these incredible different colorations based on depth and proximity. It looks like the closer you are to the object, the warmer it is in this sort of temperature coloration. And so about halfway through this video, I switched from looking at it from a mesh perspective to then the wireframe, which if you zoom in closely, this is just a ton and ton of triangles. And that's got an important implication when I get to that point later on. And it's just capturing, again, the same sort of distance. It's conforming to the general object. Even something so far as the tree, we can see the depth mapping there. And so there is then one more piece I want to talk about. This I think is really cool. It's called Polycam. Just found this, and I really just searched LiDAR on the Apple App Store to come together. But just I was saying, this Polycam, I believe, is a similar purpose as Canvas, looking to measure distances and such within a typical like bedroom type interior. And so I'm scanning really fast in this effort. You can see again if you look closely, and I know it's moving fast, but there's just tons and tons of triangles. And again, I'll sort of get to why I think that's important and where that applies. But generally, we're getting a really quick scan of this, and then it's processing in HD. Give us a second. You can kind of see I'm just spinning around the screen here. And with this, we're slowly getting to the room. And then we finally get here. And mind me, I'm kind of just flipping around and everything. But you have mostly the same visual representation, and again, an incredibly high definition for given what we were doing, just sort of scanning with a camera. I guess it's probably capturing some pictures too and maybe stitching them together. But yeah, you get this sort of 3D experience that, let's just get into why I think it's important. So a few technologies that really pump me up are, just really one off the top of my head that's just something I can't stop focusing on, are gaming engines, or is gaming engines. So these are the very complex sort of software consoles that you can basically create video games with. You give 2D, 3D objects certain types of physics characteristics so they can collide and move with other types of objects. For instance, a block hitting a block. You can add animations, you can add different effects. And right now, given the compute power and also just how long these companies have been around, they're starting to move more and more towards these incredibly high definition computer generated graphics. And so now what's becoming as the video capture, as just general art, and possibly the technologies like LiDAR are improving, you're seeing now this VR AR attitude. And that's kind of what I want to draw here. When you're thinking about or experiencing AR and VR, I guess let's take VR for instance right now. when you're experiencing that, you're basically in this room or in this environment that you can move forward, move around, you can look around, you can tilt your head and experience something behind you. You even get these different types of sensory experiences. For instance, on the Oculus, there's a game where you can look over edges and you're in all these high places. No doubt it's not the same as actually being there, but there is an effect on your brain, and it's quite wild. It's quite fascinating. But what excites me is thinking about how you can move away from needing to program those hardcore experiences within a gaming console necessarily, and how you can start capturing real life images. For instance, the tree in your backyard or a river around you. How you can start capturing that with everyday tools like a phone, like a smartphone, like your iPad, or even professional grade tools like I'm sure there's many more LiDAR solutions out there. When you can start mapping that real world experience, then you can imagine bringing that into one of these gaming engines where you can take the content you've captured and you can include new content, maybe characters, maybe different routes and things to follow, animations, informations, and you can hopefully start to see that we could sort of recreate pieces of real life and add just create this, or not even create, enable creativity to just accelerate. Maybe this has commercial applications in movies, maybe this has commercial applications in simulating like autonomous driving, for instance, using real world maps. Well, actually, I'd probably describe something that's been in place for maybe almost over a decade now. That's exactly what they're doing with LiDAR currently for autonomous vehicles. When Waymo's out there driving, it's using this LiDAR technology against a solution it's been mapping for probably somewhere around a decade to then engage with the environment and make predictions and behaviors based on that sort of mapping it's receiving through its like processing engine and GPUs and such. But back to my idea of this, imagining taking your just general phone, capturing something around you in real life, and then porting it online to a digital world where you can make these sort of adjustments to it. I think that's incredibly powerful, and I think that's got something to possibly make it easier to create rather than needing to be a technical expert or someone who's really artistically talented. Maybe we can give people, and maybe this Apple LiDAR extension is the first of its kind to start making just the everyday consumer able to interact more with things that are really easy to do, like take a video, record, scan an object. And that's sort of the piece that really excites me. And so wrapping up, I just want to say I was really pumped up and am pumped up for the iPhone 12 Pro. Exclusively for the LiDAR, my hope is to use some of these scans to possibly work them into something I can view in Oculus, or even just mess with locally on my just on the phone about. I don't have any comments on it other than it seems like a nice phone. I don't recommend the plastic case. I personally am someone that's more for leather. It also seems like that charger makes it really quick to give yourself some more juice. In general, seems like a cool phone. One critical comment. I did notice that photos at night are stunning, and there's certainly some new machine learning that Apple's built into that to make these night captures just so much more illuminated. And parting thoughts on LiDAR, it sort of stands for light detection and ranging. It's a remote sensing method. It uses light via laser pulses to measure variable distances to the Earth or back to its subject. And it's a pretty similar technology to radar, and it's used to create these really high resolution digital elevation models that have vertical accuracy. So yeah, I hope this video was informative. If you found it any interesting, certainly subscribe. I certainly give it a like, but more importantly, let me know if you'd want something similar covered. I have plans to cover LiDAR in more depth. I have plans to try and build some AR applications that might be based off of that. And yeah, I'm just happy to share, and I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.